More about a Border Patrol agent shot to death in the desert. We now know he was killed in a gun battle with bandits near Rio Rico. Those are criminals who target illegal immigrants and rob them.
What you're witnessing is Mexico under fire.
The Mexican government complains that they were not informed about the Fast and Furious operation. Did you authorize this operation, and was President Calderon properly informed about it?
Well, first of all, I did not authorize it. Eric Holder, the Attorney General, did not authorize it. He's been very clear that our policy is to catch gun runners and put them into jail. So what he's done is he's assigned an IG, an Inspector General, to investigate what exactly happened here.
Who authorized it?
Well, we don't have all the facts. That's why the IG is in business, to collect the facts.
You were not even informed about it?
Absolutely not. This is a pretty big government, the United States government. I've got a lot of moving parts, but I want to be very clear, and I spoke to President Calderon when he came to visit just a few weeks ago. Our policy is to ramp up the interdiction of guns flowing south, because that's contributing to some of the security problems that are taking place in Mexico. And what we're doing is trying to build the kind of cooperation between Mexico and the United States that we haven't seen before, that ensures that we have a comprehensive approach. I've said to President Calderon, and I've said publicly, we've got obligations. It's not just Mexico's problem, it's also our problem. We've got to reduce demand for drugs, which is why, even though we've got obviously significant deficits, we're allocating $10 billion in our budget to try to reduce demand through prevention programs and education programs. We have to make sure that we're enforcing the kinds of measures that will stop the flow of guns and cash down south that is helping to fuel these transnational drug cartels. So we've initiated excellent cooperation. There may be a situation here in which a serious mistake was made. If that's the case, then we'll find out, and we'll hold somebody accountable.
Mexico was not informed then?
Well, if I wasn't informed, I assure you that Mexico was.
Thousands came to celebrate Agent Brian Terry's life.
As we remember the kind of son, brother, friend, Marine.
Also remembering him as a police officer, Border Patrol agent, and the lessons he taught people.
Live better, love harder, and stop to take in the little things, because another lesson that he has taught us is that life is fleeting. Live it to the fullest. Just put in the work.
Put in the work is what Agent Terry believed in.
Brian knew that his commitment to the principles of the rule of law came with inherent dangers. Yet, he was still willing to put his life on the line every day.
Many of the people who were attending today's service didn't even know Agent Terry, but felt it was their patriotic duty to pay respects to him.
He was a brother, a Marine. That's all that counts.
Our guys are out there keeping us safe.
It was an honor for us to be able to come here today.
We lost Brian Terry, but we will never lose his memory, and we will never fail to honor it.
Now, with respect to Solyndra and Fast and Furious, I think I've been very clear that I have complete confidence in Attorney General Holder in how he handles his office. He has been very aggressive in going after gun running and cash transactions that are going to these transnational drug cartels in Mexico. There's been a lot of cooperation between the United States and Mexico on this front. He's indicated that he was not aware of what was happening in Fast and Furious. Certainly I was not, and I think both he and I would have been very unhappy if somebody had suggested that guns were allowed to pass through that could have been prevented by the United States of America. He's assigned an Inspector General to look into how exactly this happened, and I have complete confidence in him, and I've got a complete confidence in the process to figure out who, in fact, was responsible for that decision and how it got made.
Details keep coming out now. Drew Griffin joins us with the latest. Drew, so not only, what have you learned now, Drew?
Well, Anderson, it deals with what was happening and the guns that were being used. In a letter that was written by Congressman Issa and Senator Grassley that we got a hold of, the lawmakers say they have now obtained detailed information from confidential sources that the biggest fish that the ATF had in this whole operation, Anderson, was actually this informant with the FBI. So not only was this an operation that didn't have any way to track guns once they went across the border, but one of the biggest targets that the ATF thought they might take down as part of it was working with the FBI. Senator Grassley's letter suggests that shows a complete lack of communication between the ATF, the DEA, and the FBI.
So let me I just want to re-clarify this just because it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
These guns were being purchased with taxpayer money, and then the guns were being basically allowed to go over the border into Mexico by drug runners and then used by Mexican drug cartels.
Some. Let me first tell you about the operation.
Okay.
Here's what the ATF agents did. They sat outside gun shops in the Southwest where they knew these straw buyers were buying 10, 15 AK-47s at a time and going across the border into Mexico. They're sitting out there doing surveillance, knowing these guys are bad guys. And they were literally calling their superiors, let me arrest them now, let me take them down now. Their orders were, no, let's let them walk across the border with the guns. That's where they lost track of the guns, because there was no way once they went across the border to know where those guns were. Now, the information from yet another letter, right? This one written to a gun shop owner essentially is informing that gun shop the ATF was going to send in an agent to buy 4 pistols for, quote, official duties. We now know that these 2 were purchased as part of Fast and Furious. So not only were they tracking the guns purchased illegally, they were also buying guns with taxpayer dollars and allowing those to go across the border as well.
So, I mean, again, clarify why the ATF would purchase these weapons.
The operation makes no sense. According to every law enforcement authority I have talked with, and that includes many ATF agents themselves, you don't ever let a gun walk, as they say in this business, Anderson, especially without any way to know where it is going. So what's the real purpose? The lack of sense, the apparent cover-up has opened the door now for these conspiracy theorists. And you got to follow this. They believe this was part of a convoluted plan for the Obama administration and the Attorney General to actually increase the level of violence on the Mexican border with assault weapons purchased in the U.S. in an apparent attempt to rekindle interest in an assault weapons ban. As wacky as that may sound, I must tell you that theory is gaining traction, not just among the Second Amendment crowd, because this operation makes no other sense.
You've spoken with the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. What did they say is the next step in all this?
Congressman Issa said there is only one step to take, and that is for a special prosecutor, somebody outside the realm of the Attorney General's office, to get in and get to the bottom of this, trying to find out who knew exactly what, who knew when, and that call is being backed up by the Second Amendment crowd, the National Rifle Association, the NRA's president releasing a statement saying that this is the biggest cover-up since Watergate. It's time to ask Watergate questions like who authorized Fast and Furious, and how high up does it go?
Drew Griffin, appreciate you staying on this. Earlier tonight, I spoke with the sheriff, Paul Babbio of Pinal County, Arizona. He says that neither he nor his deputies were told about Operation Fast and Furious, and he has a lot of other strong words. Listen. So, Sheriff, the Mexican cartels have obviously been a huge problem in your county for your officers. When you realize that the federal government has essentially been arming these cartels. What goes through your mind?
We feel it's a betrayal. 42,000 people have been killed, and these weapons that our own government facilitated to these violent criminals in Mexico, 200 plus people we know have been killed by them. So there's responsibility for that. 200 plus. And we also now have our hero in the Border Patrol, as you know, Agent Brian Terry, killed on American soil. 3 guns have been found at the murder scene. All 3 of them were connected to this program. And so for us, I'm fearful, not just my deputies, other officers, citizens in America, that we're going to be facing the barrels of guns that have been put in the hands of the most violent criminals in North America. And who's going to be held accountable for this?
Have your officers encountered any of the weapons linked to Fast and Furious? I mean, obviously, as you said, 3 were involved in the killing of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry.
Well, we had a shooting just last week. A cartel member opened fire on an officer coming down from a hilltop. We've been actively pursuing the cartel members in our county. We're not even on the border. We're 70 miles north of the border, and we had this happen. And we don't know if these weapons that were confiscated are linked yet to Fast and Furious. But 11 crimes now on American soil have been linked to these weapons, and they're semi-automatic, fully automatic, and even 50 caliber rifles that are sniper rifles. We don't even have those type of guns.
Yeah, I want to read something that you said, or quoted as saying, if somebody gives a gun to somebody knowing they're going to commit murder, guess what we call them? We call them accomplices. Do you think the ATF have been accomplices to murder?
Absolutely.
So you're saying what they were doing was criminal?
Absolutely. Not just these individual agents, but people up the chain of command who have made the decision. The U.S. Attorney for Arizona just resigned. And this is a big deal. Now it's one step away from Eric Holder. This is his Department of Justice, and there are people who have lost their lives. We have broken countless treaties with our neighbor, Mexico, and we have a hand and responsibility in this violence that has come to the United States. But more importantly, Mexico is our partner. They're not our enemy, and we facilitated guns into the cartels that have worked to topple the Mexican government.
From a law enforcement standpoint, I mean, did this operation make any sense at all?
It doesn't. Where it came from is this concept when we allow drugs or cash or sometimes a criminal walk. We may watch a crime in progress, and where we can take lawful action, we allow that criminal to go in an effort to watch its spiderweb and to see how many people we can catch. They use the same concept with weapons, and this is pure insanity. It's never been done before to give weapons like this, and their idea was to track the weapons. There was no tracking mechanism. Now all these guns are nowhere to be found, and for years this will haunt the conscience of America rightly.
And as you say, I mean, the weapons are still out there, and who knows how many others may die because of that. Sheriff, I appreciate you being on with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Anderson.
America's going to see this war on drugs up front and close. The stuff they don't put on the news. I don't want to get too close because I don't want to get shot. But I can record the sound effects. Yeah, I'm videotaping it. I don't want to venture too close to the troops. I don't want to get hit.
Is 3 of the key supervisors of Fast and Furious with the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency, these 3 on your screen right now have been promoted. At a time when there's a huge focus right now on this whole program, they apparently have been given new management positions in the agency's headquarters in Washington, D.C. So no doubt this is going to add another layer of suspicion to the whole situation and the investigation. Why would these people be getting promotions when they're under investigation?
Well, I don't know.
Question today.
Well, a lot of people don't know how high this program went up because it's such a disaster to give guns to criminals. But Senator John Cornyn says this: it is inconceivable to reward those who spearheaded this disastrous operation and with cushy desk jobs in Washington. And I'm just wondering, is that what you do to people who you don't want to talk? Who don't want to say...
Well, no, they already did talk. One of them testified to a House committee just 3 weeks ago. Here was the quote: "I share responsibility for mistakes that were made."
Right.
That's one of the three that were just promoted.
But that's talking, but that's not pointing to, I'm doing what my boss said, and we'll find out if the Attorney General knew anything about it. Or is it a Justice Department just running wild?
And that's a very important point. These guys got promoted. Did they get promoted to kind of keep them quiet so they don't say, hey, by the way, we told you about Eric Holder, top of the Justice Department, which happens to oversee ATF, FBI, and the other departments who should have known about the program and some of the faults of the program.
All right, and just it gets a little bit worse. Firearms from the ATF's operation that we've just been discussing here have turned up in scenes at least 11 violent crimes in the U.S., as well as Border Patrol agents, you know, the Border Patrol agent that was killed.
Brian Terry.
Yeah.
And also, maybe they're still finding out there was another border agent killed, Jaime Zapata. One of those guns may have been at that crime scene as well.
Okay, these scenes in Arizona and Texas. Right. So this thing far from over. We'll keep you in the loop when we get more details.